Hey, you guys, let's do a story time about how I beat homelessness twice. So, I first became homeless, I think I was about 18 or 19 years old. Before I get too far into the story, I want to bring something to you all's attention that I think doesn't get talked about enough. Um, Losing a matriarch in your family is so detrimental to the foundation of said family. um, it can literally make or break. I'm not even gonna say make. It can literally break a family down. It can destroy a family when you lose a matriarch prematurely. And for those of you that are like, what is a matriarch? A matriarch is the mother of the family, the grandmother, um, the maternal family member. And everybody knows how important mothers are. Not taken away from the fathers, but usually they're out working or majority of them are just absent, or something like that. But mothers are mainly the primary caregivers. So therefore, I just wanted to say that and bring that to you all's attention before I got any further into the story because it plays a big role in mine. So when I was about 18 years old, I lost my grandmother on my mother's side. I did not know how severely that would affect me. At the time, I was living in Dallas, Texas. I'm originally from Mississippi. However, when I had my son, my first son at 16, I was presented with the opportunity to move to Dallas with my paternal side of the family, who I was currently residing with at the time in South Haven, Mississippi. And, they made that decision to move out there. However, shortly after I moved out there, my grandmother was diagnosed with cancer for the second time. She had already had breast cancer before when I was younger, maybe around 10 or something like that. But, and this is on my father's side, I've always fluctuated between living with my mom's side and living with my dad's side of the family. And so when I was about 18, I was at this time. Hey, you guys, I apologize about that. And so at this time, I was 18. I was living with my paternal side of the family, and we had just moved to Dallas, Texas. My maternal grandmother had just got diagnosed with cancer. I think the first year that I was out there, she was okay. And that's when we had just started to build a bond. Um, our relationship, the grandmother granddaughter relationship, had finally started to get some substance. Because I didn't think that she loved me coming up. I didn't think that, you know, I was like any of her other grandchildren or her children. I think I was very, very different. And I remember her telling me once, and this is not to shine a negative light on her, but this is just something that stuck with me throughout my entire adulthood and childhood. She told me when I was younger, I want to say again, I was about 8 or 9, and I had just came to live with her, to live with my maternal side of the family after being with my paternal side since birth. And my grandma was like, you up on a high pedestal, ain't you? She said, you up on a real high pedestal or something like that. And in those words. And she went on to say something else, but that's neither here or there. And so for that reason, I feel like, she didn't really like me too much. And so, and our relationship was very, very estranged, coming up or whatever. And so after she was diagnosed with cancer, after the first year of me living in Dallas, Texas, it hurt my feelings a lot because, like I said, we had just got on good terms. We had just got to the point where we were talking on the phone every day. I apologize about that. Y'all gonna learn throughout the course of this series or this saga that I have a lot of children. But anyway, so it hurt my feelings when I found out that she had been diagnosed with cancer again because we had just started to establish a actual relationship. And so the first year of me being out in Texas, me and her would talk on the phone every day, all the time. When I would go to work, I would talk to her on my lunch break. When I would get off work, I'd be on the phone with her while I was walking home. I remember she predicted me being robbed once. She had just told me, like, they called me Pee Wee. Pee Wee, you don't need to be walking back home from work. This ain't Mississippi. You ain't in Mississippi. You in a whole nother state or whatever. You don't need to be walking. And I'm like, Grandma, it's only 9 or 10 o'clock, and then it's only like 5 minutes from where I live. It's really, really close. Like, I'll be okay. I'll be fine. Ain't nothing gonna happen to me. And I kid you not, maybe 2 weeks later, not even 2 weeks, I was walking home from work and I was robbed at gunpoint on the side of the road. And so she predicted that. But anyway, we had just got really, really close. I want to say my grandma passed away in 2017. I had just gave birth to my second child, my daughter. Um, and it still didn't resonate with me how my life was finna change from this, because at the time I was not living with her. I was living in Dallas with my other grandmother, my dad's mom, and I was doing pretty darn good. Like, I had a good job, I had a car, I had friends, I had a new life. I was going to this dropout recovery school because after I had my first son, I didn't go back to regular school or whatever. So in Dallas, they have this place called Wings Academy in DeSoto, Texas, where you can go and get your credits online. Like, you can go be on a computer and they'll give you all your credits and all your credentials, and you can actually walk across the stage and graduate and get a high school diploma. So I was in the process of doing that. I was thinking about joining the Air Force. I was taking my ASFABs and stuff like that. So life was looking really, really good for me. I was on the up and up. And then I got that phone call that she had passed away. And it made me very, very sad. I remember being very emotional, but not distraught. Not like, boo-hoo crying, like, and stuff like that. Because, again, I'm 17, 18. I'm in a new state, and it's just a lot going on. And so I'm like, it's not resonating with me. Like, girl, your grandma died. And so I go back to Mississippi. It's time for the funeral. So I book a bus ticket. This is when the mega bus was popping. And I go down to Mississippi to attend my grandmother's funeral. So, before you have the funeral, you have the wake. And I remember I was on my way to the wake with my big sister. My big sister and my grandma always have been like this. Always have been like this. But my big sister is a rock. She's very solid. She's very, like, unemotional on the surface, and stuff like this. So we're walking to the funeral home, which is right down the street from my grandmother's house. And we're laughing and we're having a conversation. And we, I'm telling her how I'm in tour with my baby daddy, other baby mama down there in Texas, and the stuff that we've been arguing about and going back and forth with each other about on Facebook. We just having, like, meaningless, conversation. And I remember walking into the funeral home and I felt like I got hit by a Mack truck. I felt like a 18-wheeler just smacked me in my face, because I went from laughing and joking and, just carrying on to walking in there and seeing my grandma laying in the casket. Now, all my life growing up, I remember seeing her sitting on the edge of her bed, watching TV, doing word searches, doing crossword puzzles, standing in the kitchen frying chicken, getting off work, whooping us, beating our butts because we've been out all night past when the street lights, because whenever the street lights came on, we supposed to been in the house. But we out there being grown, thinking we grown, and we know she don't get out of work till 11 o'clock at night, so we like, fuck the street lights, we gonna go home right before she get home from work. And so I remember her tearing our butts up, you know what I'm saying? I remember her getting us ready for church on Sundays. And I remember one Christmas she didn't even have enough money to get everybody a special gift. So I remember her going out getting all these board games, like bunch of board games, Monopoly, Twister, the little Poppy one, and all this other stuff, and her wrapping them up. And when we got done unwrapping our presents for Christmas, we had board games stacked up to the ceiling because I guess they had them on sale somewhere, and that was all that she could afford. But it was a good Christmas. Like, I remember her working down to the bones in her fingers to make sure that we always had food, lights, water. I remember a working lady. So to walk into a funeral home and seeing a deceased lady laying in a casket. Y'all come back for part 2 because I'm running out of time. But